The strategic whiplash is absolutely exhilarating. Kaiyuan Commandery's war council crackles with fierce debate, ultimately embracing Xue Tu's audacious plan. Meet the 60,000-strong horde outside the city, with their terrifying new cannons. No passive defense here. It's total annihilation, as per the MC's chillingly effective decree. My own nerves were jangling just reading their preparations. Then, a masterful narrative shift. We're with the MC, calmly overseeing the launch of the Fubo gunboat, a true floating fortress complete with communication pipes, multiple gun decks, and even anti-rat cats. This isn't just about winning one battle. It's the Han tribe unveiling total dominance on land and water. The meticulous scouting reports on Modun's massive, well-equipped army built such palpable dread, making their oblivious march into the cannon's kill zone almost painful to watch. That final electrifying command to fire. Modun's world, his army's confidence, and all his careful calculations about siege warfare are about to be utterly, spectacularly shattered. How can anyone react when the very earth roars with unseen death? Seeing the signal flags of each cannon raised one after another, indicating that loading was complete, Xue Tu unhesitatingly swung down the command flag in his hand, giving the order to fire. Fire! Upon seeing the commander-in-chief's main banner wave, the gun captains at each emplacement immediately swung down their own signal flags to fire. The gunners, who had been waiting for a long time, instantly yanked hard on the hemp ropes of the flintlock mechanisms. Boom, 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 boom. In an instant, a series of earth-shattering roars erupted from the Han army's frontline positions, exploding across the flat ground like sudden thunderclaps on a clear day. Flashes of light erupted continuously, and gunpowder smoke instantly billowed out, forming a thick cloud. Dark, round cannonballs whistled as they tore through the air, their sharp, piercing shriek like that of furious dragons unleashed from the muzzles as they slammed violently into the enemy formations opposite. Modun's allied forces were vast in number, and commanding them was naturally not as disciplined or responsive as with the Han tribe's forces, whose orders were followed to the letter, and who moved as one. His main central army was the first to halt and form ranks, with the allied troops, on both flanks following close behind. They had just finished forming up before they could even catch their breath, when they heard an earth-shattering rumble from the direction of the Han tribe's army. The sound was like thunder. Even from over 1,000 meters away, it felt as if it exploded right next to their ears, making their eardrums buzz. Modun was momentarily stunned, completely unable to comprehend what was happening. Had the Han tribe concocted some new type of war drum? How could they create such a terrifying din? Yet the sound didn't quite resemble drums. Even the most powerful war drums, he reckoned, couldn't possibly produce such a cataclysmic sound, like mountains crumbling and the earth splitting. However, with the Han tribe making such a huge commotion, were they planning to take advantage of his army's arrival after a 1,000-life forced march, before they had secured their footing, to launch a preemptive strike? Were they about to order a full-scale charge? But after the tremendous roars, he saw no movement from the Han army. Their soldiers remained lined up in a straight line, standing as still as wooden stakes. What on earth are these Han tribe fellows up to? Just as Modun, eyes wide, was staring intently towards the Han tribe's position, after the roars, he suddenly saw some inconspicuous black dots on the opposing side, rapidly flying towards him at an incredible speed. Modun's heart skipped a beat, and an ominous premonition welled up inside him. He instantly realized this was likely an attack. From the Han tribe, not good, Modun yelled out instinctively. However, before he could react further, dozens of dark, round iron balls like the Grim Reaper's scythe slammed violently into his army's formation at incredible speed. In an instant, the iron balls, as if plowing the earth, forcibly carved out dozens of gory laneways of flesh and blood within the formation of tens of thousands. Anything in the path of the cannonballs, whether men, horses, or carts, was smashed to smithereens by the high-velocity projectiles, none spared. Flesh, and blood flew everywhere in Modun's grand army, severed limbs flung into the air, creating dozens of horrifying, blood-streaked paths. Only after the cannonballs had passed did the heart-wrenching wails of the wounded and the terrified screams of other soldiers rise from the formation. The unlucky souls hit directly by the cannonballs were instantly blasted into a bloody mist by the immense kinetic energy, turned into a shower of blood drenching the surrounding soldiers without even a chance to scream. The fate of those hit further back was much the same. A direct hit meant instant death, their bodies obliterated. Even those merely grazed, if lucky enough to survive, would end up severely wounded and crippled. Some had half their bodies blown apart, entrails spilling onto the ground. Others had half their heads sheared off, red and white matter splattering everywhere. Still others were only grazed on their limbs, yet those unfortunate arms or legs were torn from their bodies in the blink of an eye, flying off to who knows where. The immense impact force of the cannonballs, like an autumn wind sweeping away, fallen leaves, swept through the Allied army's ranks, forcibly plowing dozens of gory death channels. Finally, as their kinetic energy gradually depleted, the cannonballs fell to the ground. But they didn't stop there. They bounced off the earth and continued to roll and tumble, maiming the panicked Allied soldiers further back. After bouncing several times, they finally exhausted all their momentum and embedded themselves deep into the earth. Due to the many obstacles on the battlefield this time, the number of ricochets was noticeably 1 or 2 fewer than during the previous test. Firings, and the final effective range was also significantly reduced. However, even so, the results of this bombardment were still quite considerable. After just a single volley from the cannons, Modun's central army formation was a scene of utter disarray, men and horses thrown into chaos. The Allied forces deployed, on the flanks being further away, suffered relatively less damage. The troops on the outermost perimeter only heard a sound like a clap of thunder, and then saw a sudden commotion in the central army. They had no idea what had actually happened. Modun, positioned in the heart of the central army, looked at the tragic state of his forces behind him, his face deathly pale, a chill running down his spine. The two sides were still so far apart. How on earth had the Han tribe attacked them? And the power of this attack, it was so immense, so brutal. A single strike meant death or grievous injury. It had virtually crippled his main force. From this first assault alone, at least 6,000 or 7,000 men in his allied army had instantly lost their ability to fight. Even those not yet dead would surely not last the time it takes to eat a meal before succumbing to blood loss or the severity of their injuries. Not far from the battlefield, scouts from Xue Tu's tribe, who had been furtively observing the battle, were all dumbstruck as they watched the scene before them, a scene like an Asura's hellish domain. They had actually been lurking there for some time, waiting to watch a good show. As they watched Modun's grand army arrive, they had secretly been sweating for the Han tribe, worried that Modun's numerous and powerful forces, with their strong soldiers and sturdy horses, would inflict a great loss upon the Han. Who knew that before they could even finish worrying, a series of earth-shattering roars would come from the Han tribe's side. Then, flashes of fire appeared, and white smoke billowed. The Han tribe's soldiers remained perfectly still, but Modun's side was already a scene of flying flesh and blood, men and horses in chaos, their cries like the wails of ghosts and howls of wolves. This incredibly gory scene did not bring them any thrill or excitement. Instead, an indescribable fear arose from the depths of their hearts. What was happening before their eyes was completely beyond their comprehension. Such earth-shattering power, such unmatched destructive effect. It was more apt to call it divine punishment or sorcery than the work of humans. Seeing the Han tribe unleash a killer move right at the start, playing their ace, Xue Tu's scouts didn't even have the courage to keep watching. They wheeled their horses around, galloped off at full speed, and desperately fled back, wanting to report this appalling news to their chieftain at the earliest possible moment. The Han tribe was just too damn formidable. No mere mortals could fight them. Meanwhile, Modun's allied army could already be said to have been routed before the battle was truly joined. They hadn't even seen the enemy's face, yet they had suffered such enormous casualties. The nomadic herdsmen soldiers, especially those positioned on either side of the blood alleys, who had witnessed their comrades beside them instantly blown into scattered pieces of flesh, were almost driven mad with fear by this unheard-of, strange method of attack and its despair-inducing, astonishing power. If the Han tribe continued to attack with this blasted contraption, then how the hell could they fight? This wasn't a battle on the same level at all. Fear, once it emerged from the depths of their hearts, would grow wildly like weeds, becoming uncontrollable. And with the soldiers' terrified shouts and screams, this mood of despair began to spread like a plague rapidly throughout the entire army. They began to flee madly in all directions like headless flies. But in such a crowded army formation, people packed tightly together, they couldn't run fast at all. In the end, they could only push and shove each other, becoming a chaotic, tangled mass. Modun, for his part, frantically tried every trick in the book to rally his troops and stabilize the formation. However, in the current situation, absolutely, no one was listening to his commands. Just as he was scratching his head in extreme anxiety, another series of boom, 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 boom roars, like a death summons, came from the Han tribe's position opposite. As the first volley of cannonballs roared out, Xue Tu couldn't see the exact results, but it was a sure thing that all dozens of rounds had landed in the enemy formation. Every extra enemy killed now meant less pressure in the close combat later, a worthwhile trade-off. Xue Tu immediately ordered, "Keep blasting them for me. Cavalry, mount up. 2 more volleys, then we charge." The gun carriages recoiled violently, backward, and the gunners frantically dragged them back into position. There was no time for careful aiming. Anyway, the enemy was packed shoulder to shoulder, like a giant living target. Just blast away. The main thing was to rack up more kills, while they were still bunched up. Once they scattered, it would be hard to get such a high hit rate. The 2 instructors assigned to each cannon had a clear division of labor. One was responsible for yelling, "Target straight ahead, fire," while the other, with a few greenhorn recruits, nimbly cleaned the bore and loaded ammunition. Everyone as busy as if they were wound up like clockwork. The second volley was ready in the blink of an eye. With a wave of the central command flag, the gunners pulled the lanyards of the flintlocks. Clack! The flint struck the steel. Sparks ignited the priming pan. Sizzle! The touch holes spewed fire and thick smoke, followed immediately by a thunderous boom. Smoke and cannonballs roared out, and the gun carriages were again violently slammed backward by the immense recoil. The gunners didn't even bother to see if they hit, immediately beginning the third round of repositioning, aiming, swabbing, and loading. Their speed pushed to the absolute limit. Back in the day, elite French artillerymen, masters of Napoleonic cannons, could fire 3 rounds a minute. With these knockoff reinforced cast steel cannons in the hands of these rookies, managing 4 rounds in 3 minutes would be cause for burning incense in thanks. The loading and repositioning were a bit slow, but against the rabble before them, it was more than enough. Modun's pitiful allied army, having just received an iron lump massage, was in a complete uproar. Modun trying to command in person? Sorry, they were now a leaderless flock. No, a flock of sheep without a shepherd. Everyone wished their parents had given them 2 more legs as they desperately tried to push their way out, squeezed into a chaotic mess where no one could escape. Only the lucky ones on the very outskirts perhaps had a slim chance of survival. However, the soldiers on the periphery hadn't been hit by cannonballs at all. They only heard continuous thunderous booms from the Han tribe's side, and saw their own central army in a chaotic mess. In the dim light and confusion, and with so many people, they couldn't see a thing. Modun's primitive command system worked well enough when things were going their way. But when faced with such a rout, even he became a general without an army. He could shout himself hoarse, and no one would listen. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The second volley of cannonballs arrived as expected. Blazing iron balls rampaged through the men and horses, forcibly plowing out more steaming blood alleys. Screams of pain and terrified shrieks pierced the heavens, as if it were a living hell. Dozens of cannonballs, fired as if they cost nothing, once again plowed Modun's allied formation to pieces. This time, the gunners were too tense in their operation. A few rounds missed their angle and flew diagonally into the allied ranks. Cannonballs bored in from the front and soon after burst out diagonally from the side, carving a crooked path of death through the vast army formation. Now the soldiers on the periphery finally understood. Looking down the blood alley just opened up beside them. Heavens, they could see all the way to the very front of the army. Along the way, men, horses, and carts had all been reduced to minced meat and debris. The soldiers on the periphery were also stunned with fright. They finally realized what the thundering from the Han tribe's side was. It was sending them warm greetings. What the hell is this thing? Seeing such a tragic scene, the soldiers on the periphery were scared out of their wits. Letting out a yell, they wheeled their horses and fled. They hadn't even seen a shadow of a Han tribe soldier, yet they had been beaten into such a sorry state. If they actually charged, they feared not even their bones would be left. Besides, many of them had been coerced by Modun into joining. Their secret calculation had been, with so many people, it wouldn't be their turn to charge into the fray. When the Han tribe was defeated, they could still get some spoils by entering Kaiyuan Commandery. Originally, many had come with this picking up scraps mentality, but now, after being fiercely hammered by these iron lumps from the Han tribe, which were comparable to divine punishment, who would still indulge in such unrealistic pipe dreams? They were all scared out of their delusions. They took to their heels and ran faster than rabbits. Once the outer formations scattered, the central army directly facing the cannon fire turned and fled without a second thought. The rout was now a foregone conclusion. The chieftains of the smaller tribes couldn't stop them even if they wanted to. Anyone who dared to stand in front of those fear-maddened fleeing soldiers would likely be cut down by their own men on the spot. Indeed, several minor chieftains met their end with a slash from their own routed soldiers while trying to maintain order. Seeing the enemy formation scattering more and more, the Han tribe's gunners, as if injected with chicken blood, redoubled their efforts to load the cannons. In pursuit of greater destructive power and longer range, all gun positions now began using double charges of powder, served up with solid iron balls, aiming to ensure every shot hit home with deadly force. The third volley was quickly prepared. Amidst deafening roars, the enemy's formation opposite was completely shattered, and countless allied soldiers scattered and fled like headless flies. Just then, the cannonballs of death descended once more, landing precisely in their escape routes. Dozens of new blood alleys instantly covered the fleeing crowds. Seeing the Han tribe's attacks were endless, the enemy thought their worst fears had come true, and were even more terrified to linger, crying for their parents as they fled towards the periphery or the rear. The Han tribe's cannons finally fell, silent. Just as the roar of artillery ceased, Chai Duoduo was already leading his Qianyu guard, over 2,000 heavy cavalry, along with more than 15,000 reorganized nomadic herdsmen, charging like fierce tigers descending a mountain towards Modun's routed army. Beat a drowning dog, if not now, when? Xue Tu didn't get a chance to lead the charge. He could only stay with his Huban guard, 2,000 strong, to hold the center. Who else but him, after his brilliant command of the artillery barrage? If he didn't stay to mind the store, who would? His Huban guard was perfect for protecting these precious cannons and gunners. Meanwhile, not far from the battlefield, Xue Tu had just received news from his scouts in the rear. The Han tribe had deployed a mysterious superweapon. Before the two sides had even met face to face, Modun's forces had been routed and suffered heavy losses, as if struck by divine punishment from an angry heaven itself. Xue Tu was convinced that the Han tribe was well-equipped and technologically advanced. He also believed the Han tribe could win. Xue Tu had originally calculated that the best outcome would be for the Han tribe to withstand Modun's human wave tactics through sheer strength. Then, when both sides had suffered heavy losses, and the Han tribe retreated into the city, his opportunity would come. At that point, whether it was helping Modun attack Kaiyuan City, or conversely, rescuing the Han tribe and attacking Modun's remnants. He could see what price both sides offered and strive for maximum benefit. But now his scouts were telling him that the Han tribe hadn't even officially started fighting and had utterly crushed Modun just by relying on a few godlike ultimate moves? Wasn't this a joke? If this was true, how could he possibly fish in these troubled waters? Xue Tu, 100 times disbelieving, personally led several hundred of his personal guards to the front line to scout. As it happened, he arrived just in time to witness the entirety of the Han tribe's third artillery barrage. Modun's forces were indeed being thrown into utter chaos, already scrambling to flee with their heads in their hands. After 3 rounds of bombardment, the Han tribe also launched a general offensive. Over 10,000 cavalry moved out, a spectacle in itself just to organize and maintain formation. Moreover, Modun's side was in complete disarray. Even if he wanted to command, no one was listening. Xue Tu was also dumbfounded by the Han tribe's godlike method of attack. Watching the Han tribe launch their general offensive and Modun's allied army collapse like a landslide, he was frantic, like an ant on a hot griddle, spinning in circles. His previous wishful thinking had completely gone up in smoke. The only chance to salvage the situation now was to quickly join the Han tribe in beating the already defeated Modun. Only by doing so could he explain to the Han tribe that his 10,000-strong army, marching over in such a grand fashion, was here to join the great undertaking. If this matter wasn't clarified, he would definitely be blacklisted by the Han tribe in the future, and whether he could buy more good things from them would become uncertain. Thus, Xue Tu immediately dispatched men to gallop back to the main camp, ordering all tribes to rendezvous at once. The final decisive battle was at hand. Since Modun was already a dead tiger, they might as well finish him off completely. This way, besides himself, Xue Tu, the Han tribe would be the only major power left on the entire steppe. In the future, he would have more standing when dealing with the Han tribe. This was the best way Xue Tu could think of to gain the most benefit under the current circumstances. Xue Tu's army of over 10,000 men was, to put it mildly, primitive. Each man wore a fur hat, which served as their friend or foe identification system, simple and crude. In terms of weapons and equipment, Xue Tu's army was at the beggar gang level. The Han tribe's forces, with their red robes and silver armor, were dazzling to behold. Modun's side also had plenty of bamboo and leather armor. Looking at Xue Tu's men, the best they had was some leather armor. Bamboo or iron armor. Don't even think about it. Even Xue Tu himself only had a thin layer of leather armor for protection. Their weapons were mostly still in the Stone Age. Arrows were often tipped with sharpened wolf teeth. Spearheads were tied with stone pieces or bone. Fragments and short weapons consisted mainly of stone axes. As for horsetack and the like, those were rarities. However, despite their poor equipment, they had their own set of slick moves in warfare. Unlike the Han tribe's head-on massed charges, they employed guerrilla tactics. They would first send out a slightly better equipped suicide squad to lure the enemy. Once the enemy took the bait, they would immediately grease their souls and flee. Then, other units would swarm in, divide and conquer, using human wave tactics to pick off small groups of enemies. In this way, bit by bit, they lured and nibbled away, specifically targeting the fleeing soldiers of Modun's allied army. A direct confrontation? Not a chance. With their shabby gear, they couldn't even stand up to Modun's motley crew, let alone the Han tribe's ironclad legions. Having successfully established contact with the Han tribe, Xue Tu, under the protection of his personal guards, eagerly scurried towards the Han army's command banner. But before he could get close, he was stopped by Chai Duoduo's personal guards. Xue Tu had no choice but to shout from the periphery, "Is that General Tu of the Han tribe up ahead? I, Xue Tu, have brought 10,000 troops to assist." Chai Duoduo frowned, thinking, "My helmet covers my face completely, so it's understandable if you don't recognize me. But you should at least see this ox head banner fluttering in the wind beside me, right? Are you blind? He figured this fellow probably had only a hazy understanding of the Han tribe army's official ranks, so Xue Tu didn't bother to argue. He quickly scanned the battlefield situation and immediately ordered, "Qianyu Guard, charge the enemy. Formation with me. The scattered enemy troops leave them for Xue Tu to deal with. Afterwards, the Han tribe will reward you handsomely." A messenger quickly rode to the periphery and shouted Xue Tu's orders to Xue Tu. Xue Tu, being a perceptive man, didn't say another word and immediately turned back to command his battle. His purpose in making this trip himself was actually quite simple. In ancient times, communication was basically by shouting. He had to personally come and greet the Han army. "Brother, I've brought my men. When the fighting starts, make sure you aim carefully. Don't accidentally hit friendly forces. Also, I'm genuinely here to help this time. Don't turn your back on me after the battle's over." To put it bluntly, he was here to ask for benefits. Advance. How could Xue Tu not see through these little schemes? That's why he issued that non-command command, meaning, "So you're here. Fine, I know. Get to work." After a small interlude, the three forces resumed their actions. Xue Tu, leading the Qianyu Guard, wheeled his horse around and charged back into Modun's routed army. With the Han tribe's cooperation, Xue Tu fought like a fish in water. The Han tribe was responsible for charging and dividing, while they were responsible for surrounding and nibbling away. Their coordination was impeccable. Many of Modun's allied soldiers had first been baptized by artillery fire, then charged by the Han tribe's heavy armored cavalry, and now the Han tribe had brought tens of thousands of thug underlings. Some unlucky fellows, as soon as they were surrounded by Xue Tu's troops and faced with a dense wall of spears and arrows, immediately threw down their weapons and surrendered without a word. This delighted Xue Tu no end. It was practically freebie. Although the Han tribe would definitely come to him for prisoners of war later, this didn't stop him from secretly hiding some away first. After all, he had brought 10,000 troops. It was impossible not to suffer any casualties. These prisoners of war could perfectly fill the gap for his losses. As the battle continued, the resistance from Modun's allied army grew weaker and weaker. Those who could run had long since vanished. Those who couldn't escape could only continue to tremble under the threat of artillery fire and the Han tribe's charges. Many soldiers simply chose to dismount and surrender. They had no deep-seated hatred for the Han tribe. In fact, some had even traded for many good things in Kaiyuan City before. They had been lured into this war by Modun's grand promises and a mix of threats and inducements. Now it seemed that continuing to fight would only lead to death. Seeing that other comrades who surrendered to the Han tribe were not immediately cut down, they quickly followed suit. Even if they were treated as slaves in the future, it was still better than croaking right now. The Han tribe was short-handed, so they had to hand over the surrendered prisoners of war to the nomadic warriors who had defected to them for guarding. Their weapons and horses were confiscated first, and then the men were herded together. On this vast grassland without horses, they couldn't run even if they wanted to. After all, 2 legs, no matter how fast, couldn't outrun 4. Meanwhile, in a small section of the battlefield nearby, a force of over 1,000 men was still putting up a desperate resistance. They had circled their carts to form a simple, round cart lager. The nomadic cavalry who had defected to the Han tribe couldn't overcome them for the time being. Xue Tu, having led his troops in several charges and seeing that the overall situation was decided, rode his horse to a small grassy knoll to observe the entire battlefield. His eyes immediately fell upon the round cart lager, completely surrounded by Han forces. Inside, there were probably still about 2,000 soldiers clad in bamboo armor, wielding bamboo spears, desperately resisting the Han army's assaults. These men were even equipped with many bamboo-woven round shields to block the Han army's arrows. No need to guess. This must be the contingent sent by the Shin tribe. Xue Tu sneered, and immediately sent someone back to the main camp to bring over a cannon. Then, he personally led his guards and galloped towards the round formation. The Han-allied nomadic herdsmen surrounding the round lager, seeing Chai Duoduo's command banner, immediately cleared a path for him to approach. Chai Duoduo rode his horse to the front of the formation. The Shin tribe soldiers inside, upon seeing a high-ranking officer from the Han tribe arrive, immediately loosed a volley of arrows at him. However, the bamboo arrows with bronze tips merely clinked harmlessly against his fine scale armor. Not a single arrow could penetrate, all of them bouncing off. Chai Duoduo paid them no mind and roared at those inside. The heavenly army of the Han tribe has arrived. If you don't lay down your weapons and surrender immediately, do you wish to taste divine punishment? Most of the Shin tribe soldiers couldn't understand Chinese, but the leader of this contingent could. Ironically, the commander sent by the Shin tribe this time turned out to be a former subordinate of Niu Wei. After Niu Wei was secretly arrested, his subordinates were also rounded up. Some, without a second thought, defected to the faction of the chief commander, unhesitatingly betraying Niu Wei. Others, however, insisted on upholding Niu Wei's interests, refusing to yield even unto death. These men were all tribal elites who had once gone to the grasslands with Niu Wei, and later lived with him in the Han tribe for over a year. Not only were they fluent in 3 languages, but they also knew far more about the various forces on the steppe and the Han tribe's situation than ordinary people. Thus they became the best candidates to command this operation. The leader, upon hearing Chai Duoduo mention the words heavenly army and divine punishment, was terrified. He had seen the heavenly army. Those warriors clad in iron armor and wielding steel sabers were indeed incomparably brave, but not invincible. What truly terrified them was the inexplicable, heaven-destroying, earth-shattering, mysterious attack from earlier. To surrender or not. He himself actually wanted to surrender. After all, he was inherently a man without much backbone. If he had any, he wouldn't have directly defected to Chief Shin in the first place. But now he couldn't make the decision. Even if he said he wanted to surrender, the 2,000 soldiers around him wouldn't listen. Just look at what kind of people these were. The men Chief Shin had assigned him this time were all young stalwarts from the clans of several elders allied with the chief commander. They represented the interests of Chief Shin and several major elders' families, the die-hard faction most unwilling to see Bamboo Island occupied by the Han tribe. They had come here with the intention of fighting the Han tribe to the death. Surrender now? How could that be possible? Why don't we surrender? The former subordinate of Niu Wei, who was leading, tentatively asked several clan elders. Surrender? How is that possible? Don't you know what the Han tribe wants to do to us? If we were willing to surrender, why would we even come here? We could have just waited on Bamboo Island for the Han tribe to occupy it. A clan elder in his 30s shouted, immediately rousing a sympathetic response from the young men of his clan around him. The leading former subordinate of Niu Wei immediately bristled. Since not surrendering meant death anyway, he might as well go all out. He retorted to the clan elders, "Didn't you hear what that Han man just said? Didn't you see how formidable the Han tribe's ironclad army is? Formidable? If they're so formidable, why can't they break through our cart logger? What you call formidable is just because those steppe barbarians are too cowardly. They wasted so many good things from our Shin tribe and started fleeing without even putting up a fight. Utter trash," another clan elder shouted angrily. Niu Wei's subordinate was instantly choked speechless, trembling with anger. "Are you an idiot? Don't you know why those barbarians fled? Didn't you see how our 1,000 men disappeared just now? Do you still want to endure the Han tribe's divine punishment? Can you withstand it?" His furious outburst immediately silenced several clan elders. No matter how unwilling they were to admit it, the facts were plain. If it hadn't been for that inexplicable attack earlier, how could their allied army have collapsed before the eye? Battle even began. Just as the several high-ranking members of the Shin tribe were still at a standoff, a rush of hooves was heard from behind Chai Duoduo. Everyone turned to look. It was the cannon, brought from the main camp. The field gun carriage was actually a combination, consisting of an ammunition limber and a gun carriage. It was pulled by 6 horses, 2 abreast in front, surrounded by 7 or 8 mounted gunners, galloping at full speed towards the Shin tribe's round laager. Chai Duo immediately cleared a path for them, ordering them to bring the cannon directly to the front of the Shin tribe's round laager, and then immediately begin unlimbering, adjusting the gun position, and loading ammunition. Inside the round laager, the Shin tribe members, seeing the Han tribe bring over such a large, dark object, all turned pale. Even if they didn't know what it was, they absolutely understood it was a weapon the Han tribe intended to use against them, probably to destroy their cart laager. Anyway, whatever it was, it certainly wasn't something for cooking their meals. The gleaming silver gun barrel shone brilliantly in the morning sun. Even a fool could see it was made of iron. Something that took 7 or 8 strong men to push together. One could imagine how heavy it was. If such an iron behemoth weighing over 1,000 jin wasn't a weapon, they wouldn't believe it even. If beaten to death, a clan elder couldn't help but curse sourly. Damn it, the Han tribe is just rich and wasteful. Such good iron, and they use it to make such a strange-looking thing. What a waste. However, the Han tribe gunners at the front of the formation paid them no heed. Upon receiving their orders, they immediately unlimbered the gun carriage and pushed it to a position 100 meters in front of the round laager. Then they deftly began to clean the bore and load the fixed charge and cannonball. But Chai Duo, watching them load, immediately spoke up to stop them. "Hold on." The gunners were taken aback, unsure what new instructions Chai Duo had. "That chain shot of yours, it doesn't shoot very far, does it?" "Reporting to the commander, sir. With a double charge, chain shot can reach a range of 600 to 700 meters. The target is currently 100 meters away. A perfect hit is entirely possible." The instructor in charge of this cannon immediately replied. "Good. Then switch to chain shot. I haven't seen what chain shot does to people yet." Chai Duo immediately and casually changed the order. The gunners were stunned for a moment. Then a bloodthirsty gleam appeared in their eyes. They had been firing cannons for so long, but they had never actually fired at people. Even in the previous volleys, because of the great distance, they couldn't see the actual casualties. Now finally their chance had come. Fortunately, the cannonball hadn't been rammed home yet, so the gunners didn't need any extra movements. They simply inserted another fixed powder charge. Then someone dragged a 20 jin string of chain shot from the nearby ammunition limber, and with 2 men working together, they rammed the projectile into the cannon's bore. The Shin tribe members in the cart laager opposite were utterly horrified. Just now, that man had stuffed 2 large iron balls into that iron tube. Could it be that this thing could actually hurl iron balls at them? Was this the divine punishment weapon the Han tribe had used earlier? With the cannon loaded, a gunner poured loose powder into the priming pan of the flintlock mechanism at the rear, cocked the flintlock, set the mechanism, and then took his position ready to fire at any moment. Chai Duo once again rode his horse forward, stood beside the cannon, and roared at the Shin tribe soldiers in the cart laager. "I'll give you one last chance. Those who lay down their weapons and surrender will not be killed. Otherwise, you will taste the might of divine punishment. When this weapon sounds, it will surely blast you to smithereens, leaving you without a burial place, reduced to dust in an instant. Will you surrender or not?" I surrender. Are you all blind? That man said they're going to use the divine punishment again. Do you want to be turned into a pile of minced meat on the spot? If you want to die, don't drag everyone else down with you. Niu Wei's former subordinate immediately threw his weapon outside the cart laager and shouted his surrender in Chinese. Seeing that several clan elders beside him remained unmoved, he immediately began to curse them vehemently. Just then, Xue Tu's task of rounding up the surrendered soldiers was almost complete. Seeing the Han tribe's command banner planted here, he also quickly galloped over and thus witnessed the scene unfolding. The 2,000 Shin tribe soldiers in the cart laager were still refusing to surrender, while the Han general had brought a strange iron tube over and aimed it at them. He had no idea what on earth they were up to. Chai Duoduo's eyes, beneath his faceplate, glanced at Xue Tu. Seeing him approach, he didn't have anyone stop him. He then looked at the Shin tribe soldiers in the cart lager who still refused to surrender. He slowly raised his arm, then swung it down sharply, roaring, "Fire the cannon!" The next moment, a deafening boom thundered, and the earth itself seemed to tremble 3 times. Xue Tu was completely dumbfounded. He saw the large iron barrel mounted on the carriage beside Chai Duoduo suddenly spew out a dazzling flash of fire and acrid white smoke. Then, something shot out of that iron barrel at an incredible speed, whistling as it flew towards the Shin. "Tribe's cart lagger!" In an instant, a terrifying crashing sound and piercing screams erupted from the cart lagger. 2 20-jin iron balls connected by a chain whirled like a cyclone as they smashed into the cart lager. The outermost wooden carts were instantly blasted into a cloud of flying wood splinters, and the soldiers within the lager were, in an instant, shredded in a wide swathe by a weapon invisible to the naked eye. "Nee!" The cannon's earth-shattering roar terrified all the unschooled horses nearby, causing them to perform an impromptu, startled horse dance. Xue Tu's mount was no exception. Its front hooves reared high, and it let out a heart-wrenching whinny. Fortunately, his horsemanship was decent. He gripped the horse's belly tightly with his legs, the reins in his hands nearly snapping, and finally managed to control the panicked animal. Then, with lingering fear, he looked at the dark, ominous cannon beside Chai Duoduo, cold sweat trickling down his back. It was this bizarre contraption. Its power was simply cataclysmic. In the blink of an eye, the cart lager opposite had been blasted into a horrific mess. Within the circular lager formed by the carts, the 2 carts directly in front of the cannon's muzzle had been reduced to flying splinters, and the soldiers behind those 2 carts had been cleanly wiped out in a straight line. By his estimation, this single shot had sent at least 200 or 300 men to meet King Yama, including those clamorous clan elders who had been standing at the very front. As for Niu Wei's cowardly subordinate, he had luckily escaped by feigning death on the ground beforehand. The chain shot, like an unhinged fan blade, whistled forward, instantly tearing through the foremost carts, plowing a gory channel through the crowd, and finally roaring out from the rear of the cart lager. A single shot had completely pierced the entire round formation. Its power was simply terrifying. Many people on the scene were scared witless, standing rooted to the spot. Even the Han tribe's battle-hardened soldiers, including several gunners, were witnessing the cannon's terrifying destructive power at such close range for the very first time. Invincible, mighty Han army. After a deathly silence, Chai Duoduo suddenly raised his battle saber high, pointing it towards the sky, and roared with a raised arm. The surrounding Han army soldiers, as if injected with chicken blood, instantly snapped to their senses. "That's right. This awesome weapon is ours. What the hell is there to be afraid of? With this thing in the future, wouldn't the Han army truly be able to swagger anywhere?" Thus, Chai Duoduo's slogan immediately received a response. Like a tsunami, countless Han army soldiers raised their weapons high and shouted along with their commander's slogan, "Invincible, mighty Han army. Those who dare to offend the mighty Han, though they be far, shall be pursued and punished." Blood-stained spears and steel sabers gleamed under the morning sun, like an ocean of steel. The shouts of countless Han soldiers converged into a torrent, echoing for a long time across the vast grassland. Xue Tu and his personal guards were all dumbfounded. Not only were they shocked by the cannon's power, but even more so by the Han tribe army's domineering aura, that air of who in the world can rival us heroes, that fearless spirit daring to challenge any strong enemy. Invincible, though far, shall be punished, seemed to have become the Han tribe's exclusive brand. In Xue Tu's mind, a voice seemed to echo relentlessly, "Give up your unrealistic ideas. The Han tribe is invincible." On the other side, in the Shin tribe's position, surrounded by several thousand iron-clad cavalry, the remaining soldiers' courage was finally overwhelmed by the Han army's crushing momentum. The shock of the cannon's power, the tragic deaths of countless friends and relatives, and the demise of those staunchly anti-Han clan elders, the less than 2,000 remaining soldiers finally reached a consensus. Surrendering to save their lives was paramount. The Shin tribe had mobilized about 3,000 men in total this time. 1,000 had been crippled in the first artillery barrage. Just now, Chai Duo had given them a friendship-breaking face cannon shot. In the end, only a little over 1,600 intact men surrendered. As for those seriously wounded by cannonballs, missing arms or legs, they had basically bid farewell to their bicycles. With the surrender of this group from the Shin tribe, the overall situation on the main battlefield was thoroughly stabilized. Apart from those who had escaped faster than rabbits, the rest had either met King Yama or obediently raised the white flag to the Han tribe. Chai Duo immediately dispatched 5,000 surrendered nomadic herdsmen to round up the prisoners, and also had them send their own men to retrieve the livestock brought by Modun's allied army. There were at least tens of thousands of them, all valuable spoils of war. After assigning the tasks, Chai Duo led Xue Tu to the Han army's main. Gimme? Upon meeting Xue Tu, he said, "Commander Tu, my Qianyu guard has charged several times, and both men and horses are exhausted. How about I stay behind to guard the city defenses and the main camp? You take the Huban guard and the light cavalry to pursue Modun. We absolutely cannot let him slip away again this time." "Excellent. I couldn't ask for more." Xue Tu's grin stretched from ear to ear upon hearing this. Although he had been in command at the main camp earlier, he had only fired a few cannons from a distance, just scratching an itch. While it was a great merit, it ultimately wasn't as satisfying as personally fighting on the battlefield with real blades and spears. Now that he was being asked to pursue Modun, he was, of course, 100 times willing. However, seeing Xue Tu, who had come along, Xue Tu's eyes darted and he suddenly blurted out, "Chieftain Xue Tu, are you willing to lead your troops and accompany this commander?" "Ah, willing. Let's go together. Together." Xue Tu had been staring blankly at the dozens of dark cannon muzzles in front of the Han army formation. Startled by Xue Tu's question, he immediately snapped back to attention and nodded repeatedly like a chick pecking at rice. "Are you kidding me? With these dozens of super weapons arrayed here, who would dare say even half a no? Hadn't he seen how miserably Modun's allied army had been defeated just now? If these were turned on his own army for a few rounds, how many hairs would be left? The main camp changed guard. The Qianyu guard stayed behind, responsible for organizing the aftermath. The 2,000 Huban guards, full of energy, along with 7,000 nomadic light cavalry, and Xue Tu's 10,000-strong army, once again pursued in the direction of Modun's escape. To the direct south of the battlefield, Modun, having already fled for dozens of li, was sweating profusely. An arrow was still embedded in his left arm as he used every ounce of his horsemanship to gallop madly. His personal guards followed closely on his left and right. The Han tribe's 8,000 light cavalry also clung to them like maggots on a rotting bone, relentlessly firing arrows to harass his allied forces. Modun looked back with a face full of unwillingness. When he arrived, he was accompanied by a mighty army of 60,000, unmatched in prestige on the entire steppe. Yet, in the damn time it took to roast a leg of lamb, he had suffered a disastrous defeat and was now fleeing in utter disgrace towards his own main camp. Looking back, those fleeing with him numbered at most 10,000. He didn't even know how he would explain this to the women in those tribes when he returned. The Han army behind him bit down relentlessly. From time to time, someone would suddenly accelerate and shoot a few arrows towards his command banner, making his heart pound with fear. The further Modun fled, the colder his heart grew. Just now, his adopted son, Dalantai, had luckily avoided the artillery fire and escorted him out early. However, on the way, while shielding him from arrows, Dalantai had been shot into a porcupine by a group of nameless Han tribe soldiers, riddled with over a dozen arrows, dying a most ignominious death. What infuriated him most was that the Han soldiers who had killed his adopted son were all steppe herdsmen who had only just joined the Han tribe last year. Modun just couldn't understand it. They were all originally steppe herdsmen. How could this group of people be so devoted to serving the Han tribe? However, just as he was puzzling over this, rolling dust clouds appeared again on the horizon behind him. Another large group of pursuers was coming. So fast! Modun's heart skipped a beat. He didn't need to think to know that the pursuers behind him were definitely Han soldiers. On the battlefield just now, the Allied army had been stunned by the Han tribe's unheard of, mysterious attack. Their morale was shattered, and they were in disarray, no match for the Han army's elite troops. He just hadn't expected that, with tens of thousands of men still over there, the Han tribe would have dealt with them so quickly.